Welcome to the live stream from Death with Dignity. We've got a really great show for you tonight. What we're going to do is just basically have a real nice casual conversation with some advocates to give you an idea of that basically anyone can be an advocate and everyone brings something special to the table when we talk about advocacy for Death with Dignity. So my name is Molly McMahon Graziano. I wear two hats in this issue. I help out Death with Dignity as a community manager, and I'm also the director of outreach for Ohio End of Life Options. So I have two guests with me here today. I have Tony Ray from Florida Death with Dignity, and I have Kim Mooney from Practically Dying in Colorado. And then online, we have one of my co-workers, Alaya, will be helping to moderate comments. So if you have questions, please feel free to go ahead and ask all the questions that you want. We have some of the folks from the state organizations on there. And then we also have Alaya on there, and she's happy to help you get links to what you're looking for or be able to answer questions for you. So I thought we would go ahead and start out. I tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'm going to ask Tony and Kim to give you a little bit of their background, just to kind of tell you a little bit about how we kind of came to this issue. Ever since I was young, I've always thought it was kind of odd that we expected people to suffer at the end of their lives. And just by sheer accident, I got an invitation to see a presentation from the woman that I now work with, Lisa Vigil Shattinger in Ohio. I wasn't even on the mailing list. I have no idea how I got it. And I thought, oh, this kind of sounds interesting. I'm going to go see this library presentation. And the rest is history. And I've been in this, working in this issue for about 10 years now. It's incredibly rewarding. I've met some truly, truly amazing people. But most importantly, I really feel that we're positively impacting the way that people can die in America. So I've also had some personal experiences. And then I spent 10 years working in the organ and tissue recovery area. So I'd been around a lot of death. I'd seen sudden death. I'd seen tragic death. I'd seen good deaths. So most of my time was spent in the ICU. So it was really varied. And I was just really impacted by it. So that's kind of what brought me to the table. And it's just really been an amazing experience. So I'm going to ask Tony to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about what brought you to the issue.
All right, thanks, Molly. Like you mentioned, my name is Tony Ray, and I founded Florida Death with Dignity about 2 years ago. I'm a retired building contractor, and my wife and I have always been the persons in our families that took care of people at the end of life. We've witnessed very calm and peaceful deaths, and we've witnessed deaths that were far from that. And that's pretty much what drove me to start seeking out, there's got to be a better way. I made connections with people within Death with Dignity National Center, and I took the leap of faith, and here we are almost 2 years later, and we're making headway in Florida. Right. Just to mention, Florida does not have a medical aid in dying law, and that's what all of our efforts are towards, getting education to the people and the legislators.
Great. Kim?
So, Kim Mooney, I'm up in Colorado. Our law passed in 2016 in November. It went into effect in January. So we were scrambling to figure out what to do. But I'll go back a little bit. I've had 30 years in end-of-life care. I spent about 23 years in hospice and then started my own company, Practically Dying. And when I started, getting your way at end of life was getting into hospice. And that was about the difference. You either were victims or blessed with the medical system, or you got into hospice and were able to admit you were dying and have those things addressed. So that was a big deal at the time. So 30 years of doing this, along the way, I've had personal experiences, but I think the one that I wanted to tell you really quickly was my mother was the little old woman from the Midwest who sent $10 a month to the Hemlock Society, and then $10 a month to End of Life Choices, and then $10 a month to Compassion and Choices, and $10 a month to Death with Dignity, knowing that all of this was going to get her care and she was going to be able to help with MAID at the end of life. Well, she didn't. She was in California. It hadn't passed yet. But she told my sister she wanted her to do these three things. She told me I had two things. One was wipe away her tears, and number two was make sure she wasn't in pain, because she was scared of pain more than anything her whole life. That was my job. So she ended up in a hospice. Yay. She ended up on a lot of morphine, which she used to get really sick with. But she ended up dying not in pain, I thought. But the second she died, there was one tear in her eye. And I didn't know what it was, but I put my finger in it and put it in my mouth because it felt like the last time I was going to have a piece of my mother with me. And I wondered, was that because she was going to see her family? Was that because she was sad she was leaving us? And I had a dream about a month later and realized that what it was she just wanted to get out of that body. So even though we looked like we had kept her out of pain, her whole experience was still one that she didn't want.
Yeah.
In the middle of all my professional experience, that's probably driven me the most to help other people. And what I'll say later is it's the stories. It's the stories that are the most rewarding. It's the stories that teach the best. That's what we need, I think, the most as advocates. We all become advocates when we hear each other's stories of different kinds.
Very powerful. Thank you. And I think one of the key things to notice is, Tony and I are both in states that do not currently have laws. Tony down in Florida, hopefully you guys are going to be at least introducing legislation in the next few years. So when you come to advocacy for this issue, everyone's kind of in a different place, and that's okay because we're all kind of helping each other out. And I remember when Kim, when you and I were talking previously in the week, you kind of said how being able to kind of figure out how things were going to work in Colorado, and then our partners in New Mexico have done a great job with their implementation, are all things that are going to help states like Florida and Ohio when we get around to our implementation. And just because the law is passed doesn't mean that you stop being an advocate.
That's when you start. We had 67% of voters. We all thought, yay, here we are. This will not be a problem. Well, the problems don't come up until implementation. I mean, that's not true. You have to fight for it. But there's a whole different kind of problem on the ground stuff. So I was lucky to be able to do a lot of the statewide education. And I'm telling you, it might have been because of the time, the short time, but we had hundreds of people in these rooms trying to understand it. Doctors, healthcare systems, doulas, everybody saying, what does this mean? That was different than getting the law passed. So people showed up doing exactly what you said, whatever little piece their passion was, and they all added up to a lot of different pieces. Advocacy is very different than marketing because advocacy comes from the passion that you have for it.
Very nicely said. Yes. Yes. And Tony, I think you and I are both in the kind of awareness and education phase and dipping our toe into the legislation piece of things. But the awareness and the education never stops, does it?
Just a little mention of what you're both saying is that, part of the best part of what I do is interacting with people from New Mexico and Arizona, particularly Maine and Washington. Is the camaraderie, is the support that you get nationwide, not just in your own town, your own state. That's what is so exciting about what we do.
Yeah.
I'm going to expand on that, Tony. It's not just the support. It's that all of a sudden I have community of people around the country who have some of them are very different than me, but it's like a community, which is really nice. We all have the same views and values and passions. And that was unexpected to me. That was very unexpected.
Well, I guess, because death touches everyone. It's one of those, we are in an issue that literally will impact every single solitary person on the planet right now. Is everyone's going to die eventually or love someone who's going to die. And it's going to happen in different ways. But to be able to advocate for that person and to help that person, I heard a quote one time that I just really loved, and it says, in the end, we're all just walking each other home. And I always thought that was such a lovely way to put it. So I've heard you guys talk about a lot of things that you feel are rewarding, but let's talk a little bit about a little bit more about what else you find rewarding about being an advocate, and what maybe some things that surprised you when you started doing this kind of advocacy, and maybe some things that you kind of brought from your personal energy that you've kind of noticed, like you said, you've really bonded with people over.
Tony, go ahead.
Here we go.
Yeah, for me, what's exciting about it is the growth that we've had over the last 2 years. We're in the process of educating as many Floridians as we can and the state legislators, and we've got a really good organization here of a small group of people and a plan to do that. And we do hope we have some commitments. If reelected, we have legislators that will file a bill for us in the next session in March of next year. So we've made a lot of progress. What's really exciting to me is when we did some fairs, local fairs, my wife and I did, we had people that literally ran across the grounds when they saw our sign to thank us for taking up this cause, because they figured in Florida it was not going to happen. Right. They had experienced loved ones' unnecessary, painful, protracted death. Someone coming up to you and just saying thanks because they get it. They haven't had that experience yet, but they understand the importance of aid and dying laws for the whole state, the whole nation, not just a few selected states.
Yeah. You know, the same thing happened to us in Ohio when we first started. We thought, okay, well, how are we going to be received? But we thought, you know, we feel really passionate about this. So let's just go out and see what the public thinks about it. And we had the same response. And I kind of joke and use the field of dreams, scenario. If you build it, they will come. And once people in Ohio found out that we had developed Ohio end of life options, they're like, why has somebody not done this before? And they're really, really supportive. And everyone wants to bring their talents. It's just a matter of, taking that first step as an advocate. I'd never done, quote, advocacy work before. I worked in the nonprofit sector, but hadn't done advocacy work per se. But when you have that passion for it and you just really want to help people, the rest of the things just kind of, you find your niche, you find what you're good at, and then you just take it and run with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm impressed that you have this group already started, because one of the things that happened in Colorado is we had a wild group of advocates who passed it, and then it sort of dissipated. And so we've had it for a long time, and I've been getting informally called, and other people, we have little informal networks. So at the beginning of January, I put a call out to all of Colorado, and I said, who wants to talk about medical aid and dying now, all these years later? And I had 52 people respond immediately. These were doctors again, they were healthcare agents, they were hospices a lot. We have hospice in a difficult position in the state. Again, doulas, civilians, everybody, because there had been no conversation, big conversation since the law passed. So we all got on, and I gave them an update for the last 5 years. And then I said, okay, what do you want to talk about? And we had a feeding frenzy. People were updated on resources. Where do you find docs? What do you do with this? What about low rent people or low rent housing? What about people who don't have a place to be? What do I do with this? It was fabulous. And at the end, I said, okay, who wants to keep working on this? And let's put together a state organization. So somebody told me, I don't remember who it was, that we're one of the only states that didn't start out with an organization like you that stayed together and grew. We're kind of working our way back in. And when I put this together, 12 people showed up and said, I want to be on this committee with you to start this, which just made me so happy. So we've had 4 meetings, and everybody's really enthused, and it's we're just breaking down everything we need to do next. And what we decided is we're not going to reinvent the wheel or do what Death with Dignity does or anybody else. We're just listening to what they want right now. And so we're addressing the needs, and it's so fun. It's so much fun.
It's so rewarding. And one of the things, and I don't know, Tony, how you feel about this, but, I see New Mexico, I see California, I see Colorado. And that's what kind of excites me about this movement is that, yes, there's a lot of work to be done, and we're going to pass laws. But there are so many who are a few steps ahead of us. And there's then folks are a few steps behind us. So we can help bring up those folks. And just that sense, like you said, that sense of community. And I love the fact that we're really starting to kind of create a more like solid structure, and we're really learning from each other, and it's, having more conferences, more research, and things like that so that our advocates really have, information is power.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, I'm just about empowering people to get out there and talk about the issue in whatever way that they're comfortable talking about it. And that's really what it comes down to, because everyone's going to deliver the message differently, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's surprising how many people are in opposition. And if you just sit and listen to them talk, they start to dissolve some of their own opposition.
Right.
They're used to going up. And, that's the thing about this poor country right now. We're so divided. And one of the things that surprised me is what I just said. People really they want to talk about death in general. But as long as you don't fight with them, part of advocacy is just listening and being curious. the other part I'm really happy about is that the lines we thought we had, like with the disability community over here, they're breaking down.
Mhm.
And we've had several prominent people in the disability community say, "Hey, what about me? Well, I might want to use this." So we
Yeah.
see things happening that are melting the lines at a time when we really need that to happen. And that's very surprising to me, and it's really exciting.
Dialogue and respectful conversation goes a long way. Like you said, listening is so important
Yeah.
And I
because
think
there's a lot of misinformation. So, but that's one of the things that I think is important for us as state leaders is, really educating our volunteers and giving them the tools and information that they need to go out and, talk about the right information
Yeah.
in an honest and transparent way.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, let's go on to the next question. And Tony, I know you obviously came from the building world. So what skills did you bring from your professional life that you see yourself utilizing in your advocacy?
for me, it was really about organization, sort of like project management. As a building contractor, the sign in the front of the street, in front of the building, had my name on it, but I don't build the thing by myself. It takes a very diverse set of people, of skill sets, everyone working towards a common cause or a common goal, which is exactly what we're all doing. And then if you take a look at every aspect, every task, every skill level, if one of those fails, you don't get the product that you want. Everything that everyone does is just as important as anybody else. It can be the individual who makes 2 phone calls a year for you to a legislator, and she calls the one particular legislator, tells her story, and he changes his vote from a no to a yes. It can be as simple as that. And that would be the most important person in your organization. It's sort of like a pyramid shape where all of the people that do all these tasks are brought at the bottom. You have the upper portion are the people that are more visible, but they don't get anything done without the support of a broad base of people.
Absolutely.
We've got an individual who will go stand in front of a Walmart and hand out literature for our group and talk to people face to face for hours and hours in the Florida sun because she loves that personal interaction and telling her story and hearing their story. We've got a woman who is excellent at telling the story of her mother's passing, the emotional pull that you hear in her voice. We all have our skill levels and we all have things that we can do to help this cause. And then it's also the people, things like the people for the infrastructure. I mean, somebody's got to pay the bills, somebody's got to create literature, someone's got to maintain the website. So if you've got skills, maybe skills you don't even know you have, you can come to us. Move to Florida and come work for us because we need but,
Hey, don't take my Ohio people, Tony. I need them.
There really are a lot of things that people can do that maybe they don't realize that they have the skills to do.
Right. And I think you're just like one of the best examples because you would think, oh, well, people that are interested in this, oh, they must work in healthcare or they must be social worker. They must be something along those lines. But everybody from every walk of life has had experiences and everyone from every walk of life, knows what they want for their own end of life experience. Mm-hmm. And I think the project management thing is perfect because it takes a village, if you will. Mm-hmm. To put everything together and to make it all work. And I'm just looking at the comment section here real quick. And I just want to comment because we just have so many folks from all over the country. We have, somebody wants to know if there's any hospice nurses from Texas. So if you are there, go find Jennifer in the comment section, please. She's looking for some folks down there to work with. We had some folks from Virginia's checking in. If everybody kind of just wants to put in what state you're from, who knows, you might be able to make some contacts while you're here. And Alaya can certainly help connect you with any of our state organizations. And I think some of our state folks are on too. So if you get an invitation, some of our state leaders are out here in the comment section as well. West Virginia's in the house. Love it. Welcome, West Virginia. Yeah, so let us know where you're checking in from. Oklahoma, I love it. That's great. Utah's checking in. That's fantastic. Utah, just so you know, they are doing a Doc Utah out there, just accepted a film about medical aid in dying called Jack Has a Plan. So check your, if it's up in St. George, it's called Doc Utah. So you're going to want to check that out. But that's great to see Utah here. Some folks from Ohio, New Hampshire. Yeah, let us know where you're coming from, because this is what it's all about, folks, is that networking and just kind of getting to know each other. You know, Kim and I just met this week.
Mhm.
And already I feel like we just kind of have these kindred souls. And I've known Tony for probably about a year or so. And we've had some super great brainstorming sessions. So it's really exciting. And it's the advocacy is great, but you're going to meet some pretty amazing people as well. So we only have about 10 minutes left. So I thought we would kind of talk a little bit now about what would you recommend to the folks that are joining us here tonight? What would you say to them as far as what they can do to help rev up their advocacy? What's their learning curve? What suggestions do you have for them? So Tony, do you want to start?
Yeah, I would suggest they do the same thing I did. When I really made the commitment to learn more about this, I took the Dignity 50 Roadmap series. I have went back and reviewed that many times, as has a lot of our key core people, 5-6 times, just to refresh yourself. And then once you get through that, you will understand, you have a basic understanding of what a medical aid and dying law is all about. You'll understand what the opposition, who they are, what they say, and how you can diffuse their comments or just dismiss them because they're not factual.
Yeah. Right.
That, and then I will also suggest, if you don't know of a group in your area, copy a Facebook page from our Facebook page, or Ohio's, or one of the others, and post it on your personal page.
Yes.
And then see what kind of comments you get, see how many people like it. Then you can make contacts with them so that you can start building a little organization for support and knowledge.
That's a great idea.
The biggest thing is educate yourself, because I'm still learning.
Yeah.
Every day. There's so much that I wish I knew. When I talk with Barack from New Mexico and Dwight from Arizona/Washington, I thought, wow, I've got a lot to learn. It's all about the knowledge and education.
It is, and it's bite-sized learning. You know, I thank you for mentioning the Dignity 50 program. That is, for those of you who aren't familiar, I put that link in the comment section. And the Dignity 50 program is a wonderful program that was created by Valerie Lovelace, who's the executive director of Maine Death with Dignity. And it is a really, really helpful tool. So if you really want to get a broad knowledge, I would really suggest that you go ahead and sign up for that. And you can just go ahead and sign up for the Dignity 50 program. And I love your idea about posting some things on your personal page, finding out what other people that you already know are like-minded. And you know, you can start a state organization. You have support. You know, if that's something that you want to do, or find an existing organization, or we're all national Death with Dignity advocates. And even if you live in a state where you think, oh, we're not going to have a law, whatever, or maybe you're not close to having a law, that's okay. That doesn't mean that you can't help advocate for the issue from a nationwide perspective. Even though we have to pass the laws on a state-by-state level, it's still a national movement. So that's a great idea, Tony. Thank you for sharing that. How about you, Kim?
I think there are two big avenues, but I will say the Roadmap series is the only one of its kind in the country. So there are a lot of other resources, but I agree with Tony. That is a great way to get your base down, really. And I would go back over it a second time too. Most of the learning that I see now is either academic, and there's some great books to read on it, and personal stories. And that balance, I think, is really good and educational. There's a woman in Boulder named Joanna Kelly who just wrote a book. It just came out, called Walking Him Home, Helping My Husband Die with Dignity. And there are a lot of personal stories coming out. But to balance that with some of the books that are actually about the process or the law or whatever, or even articles, I think is really important. And the other thing then is find those conversations. One little anecdote can be enough to really open somebody up to wanting to be an advocate. We had one family that all went out and had glasses done, mugs, personalized with the family picture on it, and they all sat and drank together. Well, the man drank his medicine, they drank something else. So they had a final. you tell that story, and you're
Yeah.
educating people a lot. So I say, find the state and local groups, look at the personal storybooks, share those with people, and just dialogue. I learned so much just dialoguing. I'm not going to stand in front of a store for 7 hours and try to be nice. I know my limitations.
But I bet you somebody else in Colorado will. So that's what it makes it all come together, right?
Yeah.
I think stories are so important. And some of you are meeting Alaya in our comment section today. And Alaya is our communications manager. And she is the one that gets to share and help people tell their story from a nationwide perspective. And we've met some truly amazing people. The stories are incredibly moving because at the end of the day, this is a movement about people. So I did also put a link in the comment section if you're interested in sharing your story, whether you are someone in his state like Kim who works with families as far as patient navigation or helping them, when the end of their life comes and being there with them. People who've had experiences with medical aid and dying and their loved one using a law, maybe their loved one wanted to use a law. So stories are super duper powerful. And that's what kind of connects us all, I think, as human beings. So I'll tell you, of course, because I have to talk about social media because that's kind of my baby. But so there are, you should definitely be following your state organizations on all of the social media platforms that they're on. That's where you're going to get information about if they're doing presentations, if they have any volunteer opportunities, sign up for their email list. Make sure that you have that you're following Death with Dignity National Center. We're going to keep you abreast of everything that's happening across the country and anything that's particular to your state and anything that's kind of related to the issue. So it's a nice kind of bite-sized way to get information and not feel overwhelmed about it, because you're not going to know everything when you first start with this issue, and that's okay. The first conversations you're going to have are with your family and your friends. So, when you get that basic information and then you start learning things as you go along, your knowledge base will grow, and that's great. But you have to start somewhere. And I'm so glad to hear you both, because I just think the Roadmap series is amazing. So it's wonderful. And I hope more folks will take advantage and sign up for that Dignity 50 Roadmap, because it's all self-paced. So it's not like you have to be at a class or something like that. And we'd love, of course, to always have feedback from folks on what their thoughts are about that. The other little trick I have that I started when I was starting advocacy is I set myself Google alerts, because I knew that I wanted to read articles, but I didn't want to have to go out and search everything every day. So I set Google alerts for just a few key phrases. I set it for medical aid and dying, and I set it for death with dignity. And because I wanted to know what opposition was talking about, I also set a Google alert for assisted suicide, because I needed to know, what are people saying? Like, what kind of misinformation and disinformation is out there? Because I needed to be able to address that when I was out volunteering and somebody asked me a question, I had to have an answer for them, or at least I wanted to have an answer for them. So there's all kinds of little bite-sized ways to educate yourself about the issue. So I know I've had some people say to me, well, I'm not a medical person, or I don't know this, or I don't know that. And I'm like, you don't have to be an expert. You just have to have a heart and a passion for wanting to help people and wanting people to be able to have the option to choose their own end of life options. That's really all you need. The rest of it all falls into place.
Yeah.
Advice.
Agree?
I forgot something. I'm gonna hawk something. I'm part of a study at CSU, and it's one of the first times the university has touched this. But we are interviewing people who are dying about their experience, and we're interviewing caregivers afterward. And the people that we've talked to have been so grateful to talk to us. Some of the people we've sent this to said, "Oh, I don't want to ask a dying person." We had one woman say, I'm gonna take my medicine on Friday. What am I doing for 2 days? I really would like to talk to somebody." So it's really wonderful. So if you know of ways to find patients or people, or you have access, or people who might want to talk to us, I have really nice stuff I can send you. Our second part is going to be sort of what Molly said. We need to find the people who have not been able to access it, because in terms of making a difference, so this is more of my official advocacy, in terms of coming up with evidence-based research to show people who really need to be shown, we need to find the people who want to tell us their stories either way. So if you're interested, or you want to get on our mailing list, or anybody, just get on my website, sign up, because that's what kind of advocacy I grew into. I guess that's partly why I'm bringing it up.
Fabulous. Yes, I want to make sure that you guys both have, so you've got Kim's website here, and you have Florida Death with Dignity. And then, of course, you have Death with Dignity National Center. So I encourage you to go out, look around at these websites, because every state organization has a little bit of different information, but you can go on to the national site, and whatever state you're in, you just click on your state and you can get all kinds of great information. And we have a whole resource page for advocates as well. So again, little bite-sized learning opportunities that you can do. So thank you both so much for chatting with me for 30 minutes. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. This was super fun, and we could probably go on for 30 more minutes or 30 more hours, depending. But we're going to have to wrap up because it's 7:30. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. It's really inspiring to see how many people come and join us on these live streams. And I want you to, you just have a personal invitation from all of us as state leaders and advocates to just, consider what your role can be in helping to grow the movement nationally and in your state, because we can't do it without you. It's really what it takes. It takes a lot of people to do, and you are bringing something precious to the movement. So please join us. Thank you so much, and have a good night.
Night.